All right, hey everyone. So we are here to kickstart this session with Akshat. Akshat is a recent graduate from BITS Pilani campus, Goa. He did his BTech in Electronics and Communication Engineering, and he has still now cracked 4 off-campus internships at Tata, KPMG, EY, and now he is currently even working at Novo Nordisk. So I'll just welcome. Let's just first welcome Akshat. Okay, and Akshat, if possible, kindly feel free to address the audience over here. Over to you.
Sure. Thanks for that introduction. And thanks everyone for joining in. Means a lot that you're here. And I guess maybe I'll start sharing my slides. So just give me a second while I do that. But yes, like I said, super nice to have you all here. In this session, I'm really going to be just talking about internships, yes, but off-campus internships, right? Because the fact of the matter is, in this current job climate, you probably aren't getting much coming in through your campus placements. Of course, it's a bad time to be looking for an internship. There's no doubt about that. But you can also see it as an opportunity to really build a skill that will not only serve you for finding off-campus internships, but also for jobs in the future, right? Because eventually, at some point, when you get out of college, you will have to look for jobs on your own without any support, right? So in many ways, it's helping you in a twisted way, which I realize you're probably not realizing right now, but that's how it is. Coming to my slides. I'm not a huge fan of long presentations, so there are only 8 slides and one bonus slide, which I'll explain later. In that, I realized that I can get quite boring sometimes. So every slide has like this little Easter egg wherein I put in this image from a show. Uh, let's see how many of them we manage to guess. And in addition to that, because I'll be saying a lot of things, and of course it's difficult to remember all of them, every slide also has a nice little acronym in the bottom. So that could help you recollect what I've just said. These 8 slides, they are step-by-step slides. So I'll just walk you through the different steps that are applicable, whether you're looking for a consulting internship or a software development internship, whatever you're looking for, but the basic principles still apply, right? So I'll walk you through those basic principles. Then my bonus slide is just a random collection of tips, right, that I really recommend for off-campus internships. And in the end, we'll open it up for any questions, and I'll show you which shows these are. So you have something to watch over the weekend if you didn't recognize any of them. So starting off with step 0, not step 1, step 0, because this step is actually more of sitting down and thinking. It's a step wherein I'm asking you to get your act together. What does that mean fundamentally is right now the opportunities are scarce, and what that ends up doing to a person is it brings about desperation. When you get desperate, you apply for every opportunity that comes your way, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But what you do need to be mindful of is, okay, great, let's say I'm applying to everything. What is the thing that I actually want to go for? Because if you find yourself in a position wherein, maybe it's getting all too overwhelming and you realize that you need to prioritize a few things and what not. In that cases, it really helps if you have taken some time to really think about what you want. So here's the way I recommend going about it. It's looking at your goals, right? This is where I believe the dream job / internship lies somewhere at the intersection. So of course, firstly, it's the stuff that you love to do, right? That one's pretty much a no-brainer. You would like your internship in an area, in a domain that you enjoy, right? So if that's finance, great. Drill it down further. Go deeper than finance, right? So within finance, you can have buy side, sell side. You can have maybe some back end research roles. You can have some front end selling and / trading roles. So really drill down as much as possible to figure out what specific aspect of this field excites me. That brings you to the next step. Well, okay, let's say you're super excited about consulting, and within consulting, you're extremely excited about technical consulting, or like maybe let's be even more specific, Oracle consulting. But turns out you don't know anything about it. In that case, nobody's going to take you. So you need to also find an intersection wherein you find the stuff you're good at doing, right? So this is more so a roadmap of the skills that you need to build in order to do the stuff that you love to do. And that brings me to the final point, which is the stuff that someone will pay you to do. Now we can get into a whole philosophical debate that money doesn't buy happiness, blah blah blah. Uh, that's always there. But the idea is that, let's say you have a certain ambition and you have a certain skill. Everything in this market is priced, right? Every skill is priced in a certain way. So if it's a skill that very few people have, but you like pretty much nobody else has it except you, for example, but there is a strong need for it, in that case you will be paid extremely well, right? Because of course the company needs people who are good at that skill. You have that skill, you're good to go. So the dream internship is in the intersection of all of these things. The acronym here is MLS, which stands for money, love, and skills. Like I said, get paid, like what you're doing, and be good at what you're doing, right? So, with all that being said, let's say you've given it some thought, right? You have some dream companies, dream profiles, whatnot. Next step becomes making a killer resume. Now, let me put it this way: an average recruiter will give your resume no more than 7 seconds. Yeah. So, 7 seconds for your resume, and what that means is it needs to impress, right? Impressing somebody you don't know in 7 seconds is incredibly difficult. And what that means is that your resume has to be absolutely perfect. Now, when you're coming to perfection, I think first it's important to look at a general structure that you can follow for every resume, right? And I'll talk to you about the basic stuff you should have on there and how you can take it a notch higher to really push it towards that perfection parameter. First thing, your education, right? And of course, everybody covers the basics here. You put in your college, you put in your course, you put in your GPA. All well and good, things that you should have. If your GPA is low, you can skip it, that's fine. If you can take it one level higher by talking about relevant subjects. And what I mean here is I did my bachelor's in engineering, right? And I was applying for strategy roles, and those are the kind of internships I was going for. So what I ended up doing is I put some relevant subjects as in the electives that I took, the management elective. So principles of management, things like that, business related stuff that I did as a part of my course itself. And yeah, that is something that communicated to the interviewer recruiter that this person has gone beyond their electronics and communication background and really looked at and explored this field, right? So another way of doing it would have been research papers. You also have a bunch of scholarships as options, things like that. Next up comes your experience, where yet again company role is there, of course. And what most people end up doing is putting the tasks, the things they have done, right? So I don't know, let's say your work was making presentations, right? So most people would just end up putting that, like made X presentations, whatever. What's a better strategy is to talk about the impact that you generated or the achievements that you had, right? And the way to think about it is, let's maybe talk in a, like I'll give you an example from my time at KPMG, right? So I prepared a whole very detailed, granular cost breakdown for building an electrolyzer in India. And that was a very extensive task, right? Because step by step, everything, every little component you can imagine, I had a cost estimate for that and I added it up to get a overall price estimate. And that's the work I did. And that's something that I will put on there. But the way I took it a level further is the impact that came out of that work. And the impact in my case is that the client ended up building this electrolyzer in India. And the cost that I had calculated was some 70% lower than the costs in places like Germany, etc., where they were previously. So that becomes the impact that I generated, right? Like I essentially help them strategize how to reduce their costs by 70%. And that is what's on my resume. Now you have your education, this is stuff you study, you have the experience, which is, just work, you internships and things like that, professional side. Entrepreneurship, and you can look at this in any other ways. I just had to make it 4 E's, so it's an entrepreneurship thing. This is about just things you have done. I won't say necessarily outside of this, like within this domain, but things that you have ownership of. So something like if you hold any position of responsibility in a club, that goes here, right? Of course, if you have your own entrepreneurial venture, all well and good. Within the advanced, same principles apply as experience, right? You want to talk more about the impact that you generated than anything else. Finally, put in your extracurriculars, put in things like hobbies or interests, because they show that you have a personality outside of all of this. And at the end of the day, the recruiter is not just looking for people who are technically competent at their job, but also people who will gel in with the company culture and have a certain personality outside of work. So that is the whole resume deep dive. If you're getting very specific, I would say think of your resume like I said, 7 second, right? So it's a sales pitch. In those 7 seconds, you have to sell your whole experiences, etc., to show you're a great fit for the role. Yeah. Now that you have like a great resume in place, right? The next step becomes ensuring uh, the trouble with getting it seen is that if you apply through the online portals and things like that, doesn't work out as well. That's because you end up becoming just one applicant out of 500 or thousands or whatever. So the trick to getting your resume seen is ensuring that you find a referral source, right? And here's how you go about it, right? This is all about outreach. When it comes to reaching out to people, of course, you need to know who to reach out to and you need to know how to reach out to them. So let's start with the who here, right? The easiest person to reach out is obviously a friend, right? If you have a friend working in Goldman Sachs and you want an internship there, pretty solid, not bad. And of course, if you have family members or whatever, great avenue to go in. But the reality is that this subset is often typically low for most of us. But you know what they can end up doing is, let's say that you have a certain group of friends, right? And all of you are reaching out to different people here and there, trying to, get internships or things like that. Let's say you were successful and, you reach out to the cold email to a certain person. That person, discussed internship opportunities with you, and maybe, you didn't make it all the way through. Well, that's when, you can reach out to that person again and tell them, but I have a friend who will be a good fit. And that becomes a way in which you can take your friend circle and collectively work towards that ambition of landing your dream internship. The second aspect becomes the people you don't know at all, which again you can break down into two buckets, right? It's people you don't know with something in common and people you don't know with absolutely nothing in common. So people you don't know with something in common, most common example here is your university alumni, right? So you might not know them, but they went to the same university as you, and that, of course, is a starting point for. Then you have this other category of people that you just completely don't know. They're totally random people. In this case, you have to find something that can, you know, make that connection, make that commonality sort of emerge out of it. So it could be something like, you see that they're interested in football and you play football yourself. That becomes a commonality with which you can reach out, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with the job or the internship. The idea is that you have that common thread that ties you together. So really, whenever you have any internship posting or things like that, don't apply directly. Try thinking, how can I get my resume to the recruiter? What sources do I have? So in the case of like KPMG, right? The internship that I had, it was in the sustainability consulting team. It was a job posting on LinkedIn. And I had seen it at a time when there were around 600, 700 likes. So I knew that reaching out to her directly wouldn't have done anything because they were like, it had already gotten so much attention. So here's what I did instead, right? I knew it was in the sustainability consulting team. So I looked at other team members in that field, right? In that who are working in sustainability consulting, who are teammates of the person who posted this internship. And I reached out to them. And it was a cold outreach. I didn't really know the person that I reached out to, things like that. But they ended up replying. And of course, I got the internship, which only happened because, if I had messaged that person directly, the person with 600, 700 likes, no way in hell they would have seen my message. But because I found this commonality in a way, a friend of a friend kind of thing, that is what got my resume seen. But now that, I've told you, like, the who involved in this process, but more so, let me talk about the how. So when you're reaching out to somebody you don't know, you have to follow the 3S principle, which is yet again on the bottom right of the screen. Short, simple, and sweet. Short, because they're not going to read your whole life story, right? They don't know you. You're introducing yourself. So it has to be, you have to talk only about a few key things from your resume, not everything that's in there. To be simple, because the goal is not to sound fancy or smart or whatever. The goal is to be understood. So the simpler you keep the language, the better it is. And finally, sweet. You have to understand that you're reaching out to somebody who you don't know. They have absolutely zero obligation to help you. So please, thank you. These things end up going a lot way. You have to be respectful of their time, things like that. So short, simple philosophy that I recommend here. With that, I also have like a template here. Core idea that you'll observe within this template is this idea of USP and value slash like shared value slash belief slash interest. So shared value is the commonality thing that I was talking about. If you don't know someone, or like, okay, you know what? Let's take it one step back. Let's say you're meeting somebody new. The highlight of any such conversation, whenever you're meeting anybody new, is that moment when you figure out, oh shit, we have this in common, right? And it could be anything. It could be a TV series that you watched or a sport that you play, whatever. But that is the commonality. So when you lead a cold email with that commonality, you're immediately starting off on that high point where the person feels, wow, okay, this person has a shared hobby. But that's not enough, right? That's just their interest. I'll get them to open. Now it becomes they're interested. You have to sort of establish a credibility because they don't know you, right? That is where your one line USP comes in, which is your unique selling proposition, which is the thing that makes you you essentially. So this is where you talk about things you've done previously as good points to connect with somebody or like to take things forward in that internship direction. And a third thing I would say, make it clear why you're reaching out, right? I feel a lot of people don't get to the point. It's always, let's just have a 15-20 minute chat, blah, blah, blah. Go deeper than that. If you saw an internship posting, talk about that internship posting, right? If you didn't see anything in, like, make the coffee chat topic very specific. So make it that, let's assume that this person previously had no consulting background and then now in consulting. So make that how was that corporate to consulting transition, for example. So with these principles in mind, uh, try reaching out to as many people as possible. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. You will have a very low success rate when you're reaching out to people. Of course, it's going to be better with people you know. But when you're reaching out to somebody completely random, yeah, it's not going to be a great success rate. But the idea is that more and more you do it, the the success rate increases in the sense that you realize what's working and what's not. But the sheer volume of doing it will give you a sizable number of people who you can connect with and take things forward with your internship applications. Which brings me to the next step, taking things forward. Assuming you have a great resume and you got in a strong referral, you now get the interview. And nailing the interview is super important because, well, of course, that's the thing standing between you and the internship. But also more importantly, it it sends you a confidence signal at the end of the day. If you have a great interview, a fantastic interview, but you still, don't end up making it and all that, that's fine. That's life. There are things outside your control, etc., etc. But the sheer confidence that comes from just having a fantastic interview, that is unparalleled. So let's talk about those. Let's talk about interviews, right? Here, I'm going to present both these things together. On the right, you have like just a bunch of question maps that can happen throughout an interview. It's there for you to see. What I really want to talk about is the step by step of any interview, right? Um, Going to talk about all the steps and things you can do at each step in order to ensure that you have a memorable interview experience. So you start with the introduction. Introduction being, you're entering the room, you shake hands with the interviewer, you maintain eye contact, you give them a nice smile, your posture should be upright, you should be beaming confidence and positivity. So a practice that I do before you enter the interview room, take 2, 3 deep breaths, right? It really helps you calm down. And then enter. Enter with energy, with enthusiasm. And again, with the introduction, it's the little things, right? So more often than not, whenever you're entering, they'll ask you, how are you doing? And you can always say something like fine. Or you can just give them something specific, something fun. Oh, I'm doing super well. I had a great weekend doing, I don't know, trekking or something, whatever, right? And that makes it conversational. That makes it okay. Then maybe that person's like, oh, maybe they like trekking as well, in which case it's great. If they don't, they'll ask you a bit more about it, right? When did you start? Things like that. Essentially, it kills the nervousness of the interview, right? And if you approach the introduction is conversational, it's casual, then the whole tone of that interview will be that way. So with that, the next thing that you have is the fit, which is yet again like a very underlooked aspect of this whole process, right? Because I mean, I won't even talk much about the technical part because I'm sure you're doing it already. The fit aspect is you have to convince them that you are a personification of the company, right? That if the company was a person, it'll be you. That is your goal with the fit round. And within that, how do you sort of do that? Is you go to the company, you look at their core values, right? So Amazon, for example, has those leadership principles. Novo Nordisk, which is the company I'm currently working at, has the Novo Nordisk way. These are the cultural aspects that define the company. So what you should really try to do is for each of them have like 1 or 2 examples of times when you've demonstrated those. So if accountability is one of those things, have like 1 or 2 stories ready in your head so you can present them as when needed. This is of course in addition to all the generic questions that you end up getting, like what are your strengths and weaknesses, etc., which I believe this mind map does a good job of capturing the different kind of questions that you could end up getting. Next aspect becomes technical. Uh, I will not go much into this because, like I said, if it's consulting, it's case interviews. If it's technical role, then it's coding. This is the aspect that you guys are preparing for. And the reason that's why I won't go much into it because it's something that you're already paying a lot of attention to. What I will recommend you do here, though, is have to over communicate here. So what ends up happening is when we do a lot of practice of something, certain things just happen naturally, right? So let's say the correct process is A, B, C. With a lot of practice, we skip the B. We go straight from A to C. But the interviewer doesn't know that. The interviewer is more interested in your process. So that is why you always need to communicate everything you're thinking, right? You need to think out loud. And you have to lay down each and every step so that the interviewer can follow. And it doesn't become just one of those things where you're talking and talking and talking and the interviewer is just lost into your solution. So wrapping up the technical, now you have the flip, which is where the interviewer turns it around and they're like, do you have any questions for me, anything, company, things like that. This is where saying something like no, I have no questions is hazardous, because it's an opportunity for you to yet again stand out, right? So what I recommend is more often than not, your interviewer already, right? Before you enter the interview, they told you the name of the interviewer. In case you don't, the interviewer does introduce themselves towards the start of the session, right? Ask them a question that's personal to them, that's specific to them. So, for example, yet again, just taking an example I said previously. Um, let's say you have somebody working in consulting. You can always ask them, what's a day in the life of XYZ firm. But that's a very generic question. That's something you could ask anybody in the firm, really. On the other hand, if they tell you, previously I was working in the corporate sector and now I'm in consulting, you can personalize the question. You can say, what's a day in a life now versus when you were in the corporate world. So the more personalized the question, the better the flip part remains and the better you're sort of remembered. Which brings me to the closing. Same principles as the introduction. Regardless of how the interview went, you have to be smiling and just very happy. Outside the interview room, you can cuss the interviewer and you can just hit everything, whatever you want to do. But yeah, you leave with a smile. And again, after the interview, you send a thank you note, thanking the interviewer for the time and just that you had a good learning experience with them, things like that. The acronym here is UER, which is your objective for any interview. You have to be understood, which ties me back to the technical part, right? Where I said you have to walk through your thought process at each step. You have to be entertaining in the sense that, generic, bland answers to questions like, how are you doing? Or maybe even fit questions like, what's your greatest strength? Sorry, what's your greatest weakness? And you end up saying something like, I'm too much of a perfectionist. Yeah, I don't know. That's not really entertaining to me. So focus on, understand that there's a person sitting at the other end. Play to that person, right? You have to make the person like you. You don't have to demonstrate how much you know. It's not about you, it's about them liking you. So be entertaining and finally be remembered. And the best way to be remembered is, yet again, like I said, make it about the other person. You know, ask them things about their experiences, etc., etc., and that person will remember you. So with that, just putting all of it together, including the little thumbnails that I had on the side, uh, which is, I would argue, like just as important, because now you know which shows they were and you can check out which ones to watch. Step zero is just getting your act together, figuring out what your dream internship looks like, visualizing it, uh, and having a sense of that whole, just dream companies, things like that. Next step becomes crafting a killer resume, in the sense that now that you have that certain vision, that certain identity, look at the job descriptions for those roles, right? And ensure that those keywords, those ideas are there in your resume, and the structure that is there is just comprehensive and covers everything, which is education, experience, entrepreneurship, and extracurriculars. Finally, and this is a very important step, sorry, not finally, secondly, uh, very important step in off campus, you have to work very hard to get your resume seen. Only way to do that is by reaching out to people, cold emailing, cold LinkedIn, whatever. You have to reach out to people, because that is the single-handed best way to ensure that you land the interview, which you can then nail by treating it like a conversation, by not thinking of it, as an evaluation per se, but more so like a conversation between two people with the objective of ensuring that the other person thinks, understands that you know your stuff at a basic level at least, but more importantly, that you're fun to work with. That should be the greater objective. So with that, I've wrapped up my 8 slides. Like I said, I do have a bonus slide. The reason it's a bonus slide is because it's a dump. It's just I put up quite a few thoughts here, and I'll just go over them super quickly. The first one being, just with the job description, right? Understand that they're writing for an aspirational candidate. Nobody matches 100% of the job description. Even a 50-60% match is good enough. So don't let that be the reason that you're hindered from applying. The exception that I will say is with experience. Oftentimes, when they say like we need bare minimum of 3 years of experience or whatever, they mean it. But other than that, apply even if you don't meet 100% of it. Send a thank you note after the interview. Like I said, again, with your resume, typos and grammatical errors, these things are all there. What I would say is keep the font and the formatting fairly simple, right? Because I understand that there's this perception that when the resume is well designed, you stand out and things like that. But more often than not, it ends up being a nuisance than uh, an actual way of standing out. I recommend that if you're investing that effort, do it to get a referral. That is what will help you really stand out more so than having some fancy formatting in your resume. Super important point. Many things outside your control, and the reason I keep saying this is because when you will face a lot of rejection throughout this process, right? um, just people not replying to your emails, or even during interviews, let's say you had a killer interview but then final round you don't make it. It's very convenient to blame yourself for everything, but that's not really how it works. There are things outside your control. Maybe there is another candidate. Maybe that candidate was the son of the CEO, or maybe the person didn't reply to that email as of now, but they will reply 2 or 3 weeks later because they were just so swamped. So many things going on. So don't assess yourself on the outcomes. Focus on the process of it. Let's say you have a certain objective in mind, that I'll send out X cold emails this week. You do that, and then the response rates and all. Of course, some things in your control, but don't worry too much about it if they're not there, because many things outside your control as well. The next aspect becomes job slash internship greater than your salary slash stipend. The reason I say this, if you're finding yourself in a position wherein you're getting an internship from one firm and from another firm, you know that one of them is better aligned with your aspirations, your interests, the other one is not, but they're paying more. In that case, you should always go for the first one because that is what will contribute to your profile more. Uh, that's my take on it. LinkedIn specific, don't comment in, don't share your email everywhere. Most employers will look at your LinkedIn before they invite you to interview, things like that. So actually, no, wait. Before that, when you like commenting interested does nothing on LinkedIn. That is fun thing. The second thing is, like I said, most employers will look at your LinkedIn beforehand, right? And many people have good profiles at this point because you make them. But when they see your activity and they see all your activities, just commenting interested or sharing your email everywhere, it gives off a sense that you're applying everywhere, right? Which no recruiter really likes to see. So that's why I recommend don't do it everywhere. Of course, in some places where it's feasible and you feel like you'll actually get your response, maybe do it. But I personally would recommend you avoid it as much as possible. The next point being the commonality thing that I talked about when it comes to outreach. Now, there are two types of commonality, right? One is a personal commonality, which are things like sports or just hobbies that you have, volunteer work, things like that. And then there are professional commonalities, maybe like they've worked at a company where you previously interned or things like that. In my eyes, personal is much better than professional. It's just you connect better personally. So that's always there. Say yes more than no, in the sense that if this is your first internship, right? If you're just like looking out for your first internships, you don't have a lot going on for you, do it. Even if it's not like perfectly aligned with the dream internship that you have in mind, just do it for the experience. Just do it once, just try it. Because you never know. Maybe that is something that you do end up enjoying. Negotiate, not just your stipend, but also for your time. If they're asking you to interview at a ridiculous time at like, I don't know, 2 a.m. in the night, and you're just not going to do that, tell them you won't do that. It's fine. It tells you something about the company culture when they're imposing all these weird things on you. So negotiate. And finally, most importantly, I know you're in a session about off campus internships and all that, but do stuff other than this. Just anything. Don't make job hunting, internship hunting your entire identity. Because what ends up happening then is that you become altogether consumed in it, and it just really messes up your mental health. Every rejection just really hurts you way more than it should. So just do anything other than this. Really, you can meet with your friends, you can do some hobbies, maybe you can do gaming, or at the very least just go for a walk. If not hitting the gym. Um, when you do stuff outside of this, you realize that it's just one component of your life. It's okay if things are not going well there, and that balance, that stability is sometimes all you need to keep your peace of mind throughout this very, very difficult process. And with that, thank you so much for listening, and I'm now open to any questions you guys might have.
All
Which
right.
will
So I think
Yeah.
it's from Deepak first. Like he's targeting for product management or ML or data analyst. Okay, and he is currently in second year from mathematics and computing branch. And the first thing that he wants to ask is that he has done just one research, okay, one research project or some research work, and he just did it for the sake of resume. Okay, so should he add it? Like, will it add a value to his resume? I think that's what he wanted to ask.
Mhm.
And the second
um
thing,
yeah.
yeah, and the second thing he mentioned that he has also done a lot of projects during hackathon, but again, he didn't, partake in any coding things. Okay, like he was not involved majorly around coding things in that project. So should he mention those or not? So yeah, just these two queries.
Okay. Firstly, I think it's a fairly personal question. Depends a lot on what he's looking for. I think you mentioned ML and data analyst. And
Yep, yep. Product management and ML data analyst. Correct.
okay, so firstly, those are very different profiles, Deepak, right? Uh, when you look at something like product management, of course, there is that technical element of it, but it's more so of the management aspect, right? You have to be the gel between the engineering and the design and the business and the finance teams. On the other hand, something like a data analyst, different, right? It's more so about getting the numbers, crunching them, reaching out some insights, things like that. So I would say, firstly, choose one. And the answer to your question really depends on that. If you end up choosing like hardcore machine learning roles, then you need research, right? If you're looking at going into sort of ML algorithm development, things like that, hardcore tech roles, research helps, projects help, right? So you can always go to GitHub, look at all the different projects that are out there, for them, do them a different way, or maybe pick up an ML research paper, look at the way the author has sort of implemented it, do it another way. So again, like giving you an example from my time at Bits, one of my projects was, and this is mostly in the ECE domain, right? Uh, the research paper did a certain dynamic request scheduling using some kind of optimization. I don't remember the name now. I did the same thing, but I used particle swarm optimization. uh, and that is something that I can put. It's a fancy project. It's basically the same work he did, but the only thing I changed is I did a different type of optimization. So that is a good way of going about it. Uh, doesn't have to be hardcore research as such, but the more projects and the more work, proof of work, these ML roles, for example, becomes really useful. Yeah.
Perfect. I think, Deepak, that solves your queries. So, uh, I think we have another question from Sandeep. He is mentioning that he has done his bachelor's in data science, and he knows a couple of tech stack, like he knows Flask, Django, and Docker, also SQL. And he is like a bit of confused, like whether he should be working, or targeting for backend role, for data engineering or data analytics role, or data science. Like he just wants a suggestion, like which field he should be pursuing. And right now he's also interning, but he's not able to get the time to upskill. So what should he do? Whether he should just leave that internship, because it's like the task that is been given to him, it's not that much great, or it's not helping him to grow. So yeah, over to you, Akshat.
I think I'm reading your message here, Sandeep. You're given a task at this internship that you don't know how to do, right? That's a great thing. You can learn how to do it, right? So I mean, you shouldn't really look at that as a hindrance, but more so as just an opportunity. But let's go back to your question, right? Which field you should focus on is your choice. At the end of the day, I can say stuff, but it's up to you, right? What do you enjoy doing more? I understand that all of your friends are upskilling in cloud and data engineering, and your peer circles matter. If everybody around you is doing data engineering, and you maybe don't know that much of it, it might just be a feeling of just being left out, in that sense that they're upskilling in this domain and I haven't. uh, but that's not, see, that again becomes like an extrinsic thing. It's an extrinsic factor that's determining what you want to do, which in my opinion should not happen. What you want to do should come within you, right? It should be the thing that you enjoy doing. So you have data engineering, you have data analytics or data science, you're a bit confused between these three. Data engineering is the most technical one out there. You're doing your bachelor's in data science. As a consequence, most people around you, because they're from the same technical background that you are doing the most technical thing out there, which is data engineering. But does that mean data analytics is useless? Definitely not, right? It's just something that people around you aren't doing, but it's just as lucrative as data engineering. So, to answer your question, suitable field for you to focus should be your choice. Just because people around you are doing data engineering is not a good enough reason for you to do data engineering. If you're asking me to look at from a market perspective, both data engineering and data analytics are very valuable skills to have. Uh, I would suggest that if you have an internship that's making you do stuff that you're not comfortable, in the sense that you haven't done before, not comfortable with, in the sense that you don't know it, I would say it's better to learn on the job than do all those courses and things online, because you learn best while you're doing. So I would recommend you continue the internship. And when it comes to which field you should focus on, I want you to think about it more than getting an answer from me. Extrinsically, they're both great fields, though.
And
Hello,
please
sir.
ask.
Hello.
Yeah, as usual.
Yeah, sir, I just want to ask, you are from a very good college, like BITS Plan is a very good college. You must have gotten some great internships on campus. Why did you go for off campus?
Yeah, great question, Sujal.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. It's a great college, yes. I'll tell you the trouble actually with both BITS and INSEAD as well. Actually, I went to INSEAD after that. Um, BITS is a great college, but it's an engineering college. Right from my second year, I knew that I did not want to do anything related, even remotely related to coding. So all the data science and product management, all of those things were out the window. I wanted a pure strategy consulting thing. That is an aspect where BITS is not. Of course, you have these companies coming in and all, but BCG would not hire as much from BITSCO as they would from IIM Bangalore, obviously, right? So that's why a lot of my internship hunting was off campus because it was in a domain that was not aligned. Does your college brand help? 110%, right? I'm not going to feed anybody here some false bullshit that, your college tags don't matter. They do matter. But what I will tell you, and this is something I utterly and truly believe in, who you know matters. Uh, if you know somebody who has a lot of decision making power, who has influence in the company, then your background doesn't mean anything because you know that person. So that's why I talk a lot about outreach and reaching out to people and things like that, because that is something that really helps. And like I said, I talked about BITS. I'll also talk about INSEAD, even though INSEAD is like it's a business school. So you would expect that this becomes easier. But it's also a school that, and like with all schools abroad, really, they don't really ask companies to come on campus. You're expected to look for opportunities on your own because it builds the skill of finding opportunities. And of course, I hated it when I was there. Why are you not bringing companies, etc., etc.? But in hindsight, outreach is one of the most important skills you can have in your corporate career, right from this stage to when you are probably the CEO of some company. So it's great that you build that. And when you're reaching out to people, like I said, it's about who you know more than where you're coming from.
Awesome. I think I would like to add here. I think any one of you who has been in this meeting, and if he has not been, being attentive, and if they want to take away one key point from this session, that is going to be this thing which Akshat has told, which is networking is very, very important, which most of the engineering students don't realize when they are in college. And that is true for me, and that must have been true for Akshat when he would have been probably in 1 year, first or second year. But it's good to see Akshat realize this while he was in college, and this is something we vouch for in Unsaid Talks, that how important network is, right? So you guys have to build network with your seniors, you have to build network with your friends ke friends. You don't know when somebody, with one decision can change the direction of your career. This is something which is very powerful, and not many people realize until late 30s or late 40s. I have seen people realizing this thing at that stage. So very good point, Akshat. And by the way, amazing session. I joined little late, but the points which you mentioned on the key, again, one point I want to highlight, which Akshat very beautifully mentioned, is how he mentioned that it is the effort which matters. Like तुम 100 लोगों को अप्रोच करोगे तो ऑब्वियस है तुम्हारी इंटर्नशिप लग जाएगी, राइट? पीपल फाइंड, try to figure out some secrets nahi hai. It's about putting the right effort. There is little bit smartness, yes, which Akshat covered around the content, around kaise message frame karna hai, right? That definitely matters. But what other part matters is your effort. Like how many people who wants internship actually apply to 100 internships? Very few, right? And that is where the game changes. So really good points, Akshat. I think you have hit the nail. And those who are attending the session, I am sure अगर वो ये 2 3 4 points भी लेके जाएंगे इस session से, things can change if they just implement these 2 3 points. Cool. So I will move on to next person, Faisal. Faisal, you have raised the hand. You can ask your
My
question.
phone camera. Okay. Hi,
Bit
Akshat.
of intro, Faisal. From which college you are? Which
Uh,
college?
from NM College, Mumbai. So I'm not an engineer. I'm from commerce background. So
Problem.
I will
Yeah,
not
yeah.
be able to relate with a lot of people here, but I'll still. So, considering the time constraints, I'll just sum up my questions into two questions. So, I did reach out to my personal connection and I got an offer from KPMG, but I wanted consulting. It's my first preference, but they're offering taxation. So, I'm in a very conflict as to because I do not want to do anything that CAs do, and my college is known specifically as a CA factory. So, I'm in a very conflict as to should I just go for the brand name or should I actually try and reach out to other consulting firms? And the second question being is that my GPA is low, like the CGPA, but so can I like showcase in my CV in such a way as to my like few semesters the GPA is high, but the overall CGPA is actually very below average. So can I redesign my resume in such a way where I showcase the stronger parts of my GPA or like put my GMAT focus score or GRE score? That's all. Yeah.
I'll answer the second part of second question first.
Okay.
Put in your GMAT GRE score 100%. If that's good, even if you don't put in your GPA, but you put in a good GMAT score, works, right? Now
Okay.
within the GPA, I would say it depends on the trend of it, in the sense that let's say you started off with a very high GPA and then it started coming down, probably not something you should highlight. On the contrary, if you started with a low GPA and then it started rising up, that becomes something you can highlight, in the sense that look, of course things were here, but I made that improvement, and that gives some context to your overall lower GPA, right? If you don't want to take that route, another thing you can do is maybe mention, like, a lot of these places have first class, second class divisions, right? That
Yeah.
could be something to mention. Or you could also mention, instead of your GPA, just mention the subjects where you performed well, right? So just mention your rank in them, maybe, if you have that kind of concept. uh, like you were the class topper in XYZ elective, for example, things like that. But of course, if you have a good GMAT score, 100% put that on there, especially since you're seeking consulting roles. Which brings me to your first question. The brand name does matter, there's no denying that. But taxation is a very different field from consulting, and you know that,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So that is there.
The thing is, there was a very strict requirement that they were hiring postgraduates only. And I'm in second year undergraduate. So, a partner referral also couldn't go really far because they had a very strict requirement where they would only take PGs in and not UGs. So there wasn't
Is
much
this
that I
an
could do.
internship, or is this like a...
This is an internship for summer, basically.
Okay, since it's an internship for the summer, if you feel that, you know, are you like even remotely interested in taxation? Actually, let me ask you that.
It was a subject I had in semester three, and I did score particularly well in that subject. But it's not something I see myself working after clearing my graduation. That's the fest.
Okay,
That's basically the summary of it.
fair. See, the way I see it is, right now you have this one opportunity in hand, a taxation at KPMG, which is of course a well-known firm. It's not something that aligns very clearly with your longer term aspirations.
True.
But with that being said, you don't want to find yourself in a position wherein you say no to these guys and then you don't have an internship at all, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So my take on it is, because you have the brand value of it, at least here, you hold on to this, but I still want you actively looking out for consulting internships. Like, that focus. And then maybe if you land one, great. Then maybe you can consider letting
True.
this one go. But as
Makes
of
sense.
now, as I understand it, you only have this one option in hand. So yeah, I was saying that taxation and consulting, of course, are very different fields. But if you find yourself in a position where you are doing a taxation internship, uh, ask the people around you who are working. Like, maybe some of them come with a consulting background. So when you're basically within that whole KPMG network, you network like a maniac, right? You go to your manager, you go to your manager's manager, you go to your manager's friends, everybody you talk to, and you look at people who previously did consulting or things like that. And basically, once you're in, you try figuring out ways to move around, things like that. Tell your manager that your aspirations lie in consulting, for example.
Right.
Ask him to give you sort of projects that build those skills.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's what I say. First focus is that अभी तुम्हारे पास हाथ में एक है, So, one word in hand is two
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
the
I
bush.
mean, yeah, beggars can't be choosers. So that makes sense.
Not the word I wanted to use, but that is that. But with that being said, keep applying.
Right. Also, I wanted to ask the importance of case competitions, basically. Like, how important are they in terms of, an internship or a job per se?
Things happen. Actually, three things happen with case competitions. One is if you're presenting in front of judges, most probably the judges are people working in consulting companies. So if you end up winning or like in the top three or whatever, good, right? You have a judge who you have a good rapport with, essentially. So that's the first benefit, the most direct, tangible internship slash job landing benefit of it. The second benefit is that you're actually kind of doing the job in a shorter time frame, right? It's the whole idea behind a case competition is to mimic a case that you get in a consulting environment. So that is the second benefit. And the third benefit is you're not the only person there, you're not the only participant. You have the other participants, you have the event organizers, things like that. Again, something that becomes just good for you in general because you're surrounded by these people, right? So you get to know what they have that you don't, and that helps you figure out your strengths and weaknesses. So I would recommend them. On your resume, how do they look? Depends on which one you're winning, right? If you win IIM Bangalore's case competition, pretty damn good. Uh, so that is there. On the resume, how it looks depends on which one you're winning and where you're ranking, things like that. But personally slash professionally, I've told you the benefits. So I believe it's a good. It's also fun, honestly. So you should do
True.
that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, as long as it's a podium finish, it's much better than just, taking part. And basically it should be like a competition of a tier one college or a corporate competition, right?
Yeah, yeah, true.
Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you so
So
much.
I had a couple of questions. The first being, are certifications enough to land your jobs or get internships? And second question being, okay, you can answer the first one, then I will go with the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Certifications are not enough in my eyes. It's always more so about the work you do outside a certification. So let's say you do an online course on Coursera, doesn't matter, doesn't nobody cares. You care because you're learning something out of it. If you do it with the intention of not filling your resume and actually learning, great for you. That's something you should do. What's better is if you've done the course and you can make some sort of project out of it. That is something that you can put on your resume, and I recommend you do. Uh, on a sort of related note, when I say certifications, I'm talking about online courses here. But if you're talking about certifications like, I don't know, the PMP certification, or if you're in finance and CFA, those things, those are, of course, useful. You often have to pay a hefty amount of money to get them as well, though. And I feel, at early stages of your career, it's not something that you need to do per se, but they definitely do help. So, bottom line, if it's just some random online course, doesn't mean much. If it's like a professionally accredited certification, like the PMP, CFA, things like that, they will be helpful, but there is a significant time and money investment. So, it's really a choice of how much of it you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to be specific, that certification is accredited by NASCOM, I think. NASCOM accredited data science course. So I was being specific about data science.
Could you name the thing if you don't mind? If I'll maybe just Google it once.
NASCOM certification for data science 360 by Analytics Lab.
Hmm.
It is, I think, Government of India initiative.
Still, I think, sorry, Akshat, I would like to mention, I think what Akshat mentioned still holds true, even if it's this certification or whatever. Because I'll be very true, matlab, from my personal experience of, sitting in interviews, like I've said for multiple interviews, like I had mentioned many certificates in my resume, and I also used to carry a file with this many certificates with me. And never in even a single interview, my file was even opened, which was of certificates. Because what they used to ask was related to the projects which I have done. And you rightly mentioned that it's better if you learn whatever you have learned from that course, right? From wherever you have done. If you are able to build a project and talk about that in the interview, that will make an impact.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And
So
I just look
the
at the NAS.
only reason I'm asking you this question is I'm probably trying to switch from a mechanical stream to data science, especially because I'm already working and I'm working as an assistant manager in mechanical field. So right now with the company is trying to expand and they are trying to get in the IT field connected with the mechanical stream. So for that they have an opportunity for data science. So before diving into that, I was thinking, should I just go for certification or should I go for postgraduate? Given the fact that I will be somehow uh, getting that transition there.
So this is within your company, you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Go
So
talk to
if I just switch
person.
within the company, then probably if I get the right amount of experience, then I can probably switch the entire domain itself. So that was the
Yeah,
thought
so
process. Choice.
that, that's what I would say, right? Go and talk to the data folks in your company. Uh, Ask them this question,
So they
right?
are just trying.
The reason
They are
I'm asking
setting
you
it
to
up
ask
right
them this
now.
question, okay, they're
They're
setting it up.
setting up now.
How are
Yeah.
they filling in the people? Like,
They'll be bringing someone from the, I think from Europe. It's a
okay,
connected group.
okay, great. So
So
they're
I've just
bringing
filled in the
somebody new.
application. Yeah.
Perfect. So you have somebody new coming into the organization. People who are new are often looking to people to talk with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you should strive to be is essentially the first person he talks to when he comes, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Sure.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. So, if someone transitions from mechanical to IT, is it the right stream to jump into, or are there any other, you can upskill in some other IT fields?
See, I mean, right or wrong, it's very, it's like
Yeah,
not
subjective. I
very
can understand
subjective, right?
subjective, objective. Yeah,
That's always there. If you're interested in data science and you're looking to make that jump within your particular context, what I would recommend is, of course, you've taken that course. Uh, the certification by itself uh, might not hold that much merit. What you can do is look up sort of data science projects to do. Have like a few of them ready. Now, when this new person comes into your organization from Europe, you
yeah,
go and introduce yourself to him. The goal of your introduction from your end is to introduce him to the company and just the life in India, things like that. It's not
yeah,
to get into his team. Your role is to welcome him. Once you've done that, then you can always through natural conversation mention that you're also very interested in data science, things like that. You've done this project, that project. Ask him for
yeah,
his feedback on those projects, things like that. And that way, if it comes to a point, I'm assuming this is a senior guy, right? Because they bring in the senior guys from different places.
yes,
He'll come to a point where the senior guy goes, uh, of course, I want to hire people from outside, but within the company, I noticed that Srinivas is also interested in data science, blah, blah, blah. That's how you open it up for yourself, in my eyes.
yeah, definitely. Thanks for clarifying. Thank you.
So yeah, I think we have Sujal also. He has also raised his hand. So maybe if he also want to ask any question, Sujal, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. So there are mainly two platforms where we post our progress in this in our domains we are learning and working on. There are mainly LinkedIn and Twitter, right? So
Mhm.
I'm currently a second year student, currently learning DSA, and I have been using LinkedIn. So should I start Twitter also using Twitter too, or like keep posting on LinkedIn?
The way I see it is, especially like since you mentioned DSA, right? Twitter is more popular among the developers, is my observation, right?
Okay.
Uh, when it comes to posting, see, you have to understand when you're posting, when you're building your personal brand, things like that. Uh, there are two things that happen. One is like you have people coming to your profile, people you're attracting, and then one is your outreach, your efforts, those things. The reality is the latter is going to happen much more to you. Like you will have to actively make that effort and reach out to people, regardless of how much content you're putting out and how influential you are. It's all there. It helps, but you cannot rely on inbound as your only source. You have to reach out. So my suggestion to you would be, if you're writing consistently on LinkedIn, uh, if it's already, swamping you, then rather than making the jump from LinkedIn to Twitter per se, focus more on reaching out to people on LinkedIn, because you have a good profile there, right? It's something that's visible to people. And once you're doing that, if you have the time and energy left over, start writing on Twitter as well, in my eyes.
Okay. Okay. So I have also another question. Like, I am currently a CSC student. So if we talk about JavaScript, it is a huge language. Like there is a lot of things we can learn about it. So at one point, should we start applying for internships in JavaScript? But like we cannot learn 100% of it, right? Yeah,
So,
we can learn just working in JavaScript, and so at what point should we apply for internships or jobs using that language?
you should, like you said, you cannot learn 100% of it. I completely agree.
Yeah.
What you should do is figure out what the folks are doing with JavaScript at whatever companies you're looking at, right? And the moment you find yourself confident enough to do at least 60-70% of that is when you start applying. So, uh, to give you some context, like, of course, I can't speak particularly with JavaScript in mind, but I can talk about data science. Those are the internships I did. So, with data science, you have a whole pipeline, right? You have data engineering, and then you have the uh, processing, then the analytics side, then you have the visuals, the business intelligence part, right? The dashboards, Power BI, etc. When I started data science, most people I start with the machine learning model building part of it, right? I realized that is not the thing that most people like. It's like just 10% of the time. The rest 80% goes in cleaning the data, right? So I looked up a bit how to clean the data and looked up a bit on machine learning. And when I had this base level understanding, I applied, even though I don't know data engineering or business intelligence. These I started applying, right? Uh, if I would go back and like maybe I don't know, start with the business intelligence part, just with the Power BI and all those stuff, making those data reports and all. Once I sort of could make like basic reports, I would start applying. The idea is when you have like base level understanding, and what is your base level understanding? Is something that by talking to people who are in that field, right?
Okay.
Once you have that, you apply, and anything further than that that you're learning, that is to satiate your own curiosity and upskill, not necessarily relevant to the role per se.
Great. I think we are already above the timing, guys. There are more questions coming. I think we can take last one or two more small questions. Ritish, okay, Rakshit is asking how to maintain LinkedIn constantly. It's very open-ended question, Rakshit, but still, Akshat, if you want to throw some
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 key points.
Yeah, firstly, I would say, and this is something I just told social as well. The major motivation I feel people write on LinkedIn is they expect कि हम लिखेंगे and recruiters will come running towards us. That's not how it works. Uh, what I would recommend is you spend a lot of time ensuring that any recruiter who does land up at your LinkedIn profile likes it, right? So that is where you should invest your effort. So maintaining LinkedIn constantly, in my eyes, if you're actively job hunting, is keeping an optimized and up to date profile. Now, if you want to write on LinkedIn, that's write with the expectation that it's not going to bring people or anything of that sort. That's not how it works. If you want to write, then I would say to maintain consistency as such, it's a simple matter of more so than consistency and all of that. The ideation part, just sit down and just pen random thoughts that come to your head. Anything. Take like 30 minutes to just write anything random. Don't judge yourself for what you're writing. Just anything random works. And then you'll observe you have like a page full of ideas to write. And when you have ideas, really, that's the biggest challenge you have towards consistency. So I would say that's the way I go about it. But yes, other than that, I would say writing per se, it's good. It's good for you. It builds up your communication skills. It's good in the sense that it might attract opportunities. And when you're reaching out to people, it look, but don't expect that that'll be what lands you the internship, in my hands.
Definitely. I think writing is a very long-term game. So, Rakshit, even I would suggest if you want to write, don't write it with some outcome in mind, but write it for the fun of, writing regularly and the fun of because your thoughts get aligned a lot when you constantly write daily. You read something, you reframe in your mind, and then write. It's really fun. So I enjoy writing a lot on LinkedIn. Great. I think
Likewise.
uh, yes. Sorry, Akshat.
I said likewise. Yeah.
Yeah, I follow your posts, and those are like your each of the posts. I'm like shocked to see the likes. All are like 200 plus, 150 plus, 100 plus.
Okay.
Good work with LinkedIn, man. Okay, guys, I think we will wrap up this. Okay, Rakshit, one last question will take yours. Will that work for everyone, irrespective of the job people? Definitely, Rakshit. Akshat, you want to throw any?
I've been writing since I think second year of college. Yeah. So yeah.
Great. Great. I hope, Rakshit, this answers your question. It was lovely meeting you, Akshat. I am 100% certain whoever must have attended this session and taken some 4 or 5 key points, and if he implements that, they are definitely going to, top up their game of internship applications. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Akshat, for contributing to UnsaidTalks community, and we would like to keep on hosting more sessions on more experiences which you gain in your life, so that we can contribute back to the community and to the students. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everyone for joining. Over to you, Akshat, for the closing words.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and some really, really great questions as well. And of course, in the future, always happy to come and share further experiences as well. It's getting quite late now, though. So you might want to go back to your society meets and your classes, or you might not. Uh, but yeah, good
Great.
night.
Good
We'll
night,
see you.
everyone. Good night, Akshat. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone. Good night. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.